The Houston Rockets got the worst news that they could have possibly imagined yesterday afternoon when it was announced that guard Fred VanVleet had suffered a torn ACL, likely suggesting that he's going to be out for the entirety of the 2025-26 season, and you can now kiss the Houston Rockets championship aspirations goodbye. Now, although the Houston Rockets still have key cornerstone pieces with players like Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun to still lead this team, people will underestimate just how valuable and impactful Fred VanVleet was going to be to this team, as he has demonstrated that the last 2 seasons with his time in Houston. And after getting that contract extension, you were expecting another step forward from Fred VanVleet, because this is a guy who commanded the offense, was a guy who could stretch the floor and obviously run a ton of pick and roll alongside Amen Thompson and Alperen Sengun, and that was going to really help open up the floor for everybody else. And although last season, production-wise, was not the best of seasons for Fred VanVleet, a guy who averaged 14.1 points, which was his lowest mark since the 2018-19 season. Fred VanVleet is obviously a guy who has veteran experience. He obviously has championship pedigree to his name, and he's still a playoff riser. If you look at what Fred VanVleet did last year in that first round series against the Golden State Warriors, he not only helped lead this Houston Rockets team to 7 games against Jimmy and Steph Curry, but he was able to average 18.7 points in that first round series, while also shooting 43% from the floor and a scorching 43.5% from behind the arc. He was absolutely nothing short of sensational in that first round series against the Golden State Warriors. And for the record, anyone suggesting that Russell Westbrook goes back to the Houston Rockets and reunites with the organization and Kevin Durant, please stop talking ball. That would be the worst decision the Rockets can make. And what makes this situation so much more difficult is the fact that although Alperen Sengun and Kevin Durant are 2 guys as a point forward and a point center who obviously do a great job with the ball in their hands, creating for others, and obviously working out a pick and roll in isolation, this is still going to detrimentally hurt the Houston Rockets so much, because now you're going to have to force guys like Amen Thompson, Reed Shepherd, and Aaron Holiday to significantly step it up in terms of their usage rate. And when you take a look at where Kevin Durant was last year with Bradley Beal and Devin Booker in Phoenix, his usage rate was at 28.3%. You look at the Houston Rockets last year, their top 3 guys in terms of their usage percentage were Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and Cam Whitmore. And 2 of those 3 guys, being both Jalen Green and Cam Whitmore, are no longer in Houston. So that now means that the Houston Rockets have 2 of their top 3 guys in terms of their usage rate last year off the team. Fred VanVleet, who was 9th in usage percentage at 17.6%, he's no longer going to be available, which means that KD and Alperen Sengun, who are more than capable of running the offense and commanding and getting everyone set up, are going to have to do so much more of the heavy lifting on the offensive side of the ball, while also simultaneously having the young guys like Reed Shepherd and others having to step up and significantly play better as point guards, and their ability to stretch the floor, that is going to be huge. And if anything, I commended the Houston Rockets for having a terrific offseason, because they have one of the deepest teams in the NBA, even though you're no longer going to have Fred VanVleet. When you look at the players that they re-signed this offseason, they brought back Steven Adams, Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday, Jabari Smith Jr., and Fred VanVleet both got big contracts, as well as Jae'Sean Tate. You look at who they added in free agency. They brought back Clint Capella. They added in Dorian Finney-Smith, J.D. Davidson, the former G League MVP, Josh Okogie, and of course the biggest move of the offseason, adding in Kevin Durant. They did unfortunately have to lose Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, as well as Cam Whitmore. You would love to have Cam Whitmore now with this opportunity with Fred VanVleet getting injured. Maybe Cam Whitmore could have slided into that spot, but nonetheless, this Houston Rockets team is still exceptionally deep. They have so much talent on this roster, and I do believe that Ime Udoka is going to be able to get the best out of these players, because he is a damn good coach, and of course, one of the best coaches in the entire association. One thing that I don't think is going to be talked about enough is the fact that the Houston Rockets last season were 18th in the regular season in terms of their pace of play, so really towards the middle of the pack. But now that you're no longer going to have Fred VanVleet, you're going to have Kevin Durant, who's obviously an age superstar but still exceptionally productive. I would expect that number to now drop to the mid to lower 20s, and I expect Houston to be a bottom 5 team in terms of their pace of play, because although Amen Thompson and some of these young guys can get out in transition, when you have Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun as your guys out there, and you no longer have Fred VanVleet who can get out there and push the pace, you're going to see a much different offense from the Houston Rockets, and I do think that Ime Udoka in that half-court offense is really going to be able to get the best out of his guys, and you're still going to have a very stout defensive unit with KD, who's still a very solid and productive defender. Obviously, guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and Tari Eason are very good defenders. I like what Houston has defensively. I like what they can still do in the half-court offense. But of course, losing a guy like Fred VanVleet is ultimately going to come back to bite this team in the ass, and we're not really sure just how this team is going to look and perform without their starting point guard. Just want to take a moment to say, if you are appreciating this type of work and coverage from me, the best and easiest way to support me is by liking, commenting, and subscribing down below. It's free and it helps me and the channel out tremendously. My goal is to get this channel up to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the calendar year, and if you guys want more exclusive content from me outside of just here on YouTube, you guys can go ahead and follow me on my socials. The links to all of them will be in the description down below. But thank you guys again, and let's go ahead and get back to today's video. And this Houston Rockets team, they went all in this offseason. They pushed all their chips to the middle of the table, and the expectation was to at least make a deep postseason run, even though this team on paper had the capabilities of making an NBA Finals push. Now, when you subtract Fred VanVleet from this roster, I'm not sure that this Rockets team is going to be capable of beating a Golden State Warriors, a Los Angeles Clippers, a Lakers team, a Thunder team, a Timberwolves team, and so many other very good high-end teams in the Western Conference. I think that this Rockets team is a first-round exit at best without Fred VanVleet, unless they make a huge trade at the deadline. I could see them potentially going out there and trying to get Jrue Holiday from the Portland Trail Blazers, because Jrue Holiday obviously has that veteran experience. He has that championship pedigree, and I think he would be a terrific fit defensively and offensively speaking for what this Houston Rockets team is looking at as a veteran at this point in his career, who's still on an extremely expensive contract. But if Houston is very serious about going out there and trying to make an all-in move this season with KD, I would look at Jrue Holiday's name at the deadline as a potential move for the Rockets to try to go out there and get. But overall, this is just devastating news for Fred VanVleet at this point in his career as an aging veteran point guard, especially a guy who's undersized. This is devastating news for the Rockets organization and Rockets fans everywhere who really were expecting this team to take another step forward and to potentially make an NBA Finals push. I really thought that Houston was at least going to make it to the second round and potentially have a chance at a Western Conference Finals. But now without Fred VanVleet, I think you can kiss that championship window absolutely out the window. And I am extremely excited to now see how some of these young guys are going to try to step up into those roles now with a bigger, larger opportunity in the absence of Fred VanVleet. But thank you guys so much for sticking around throughout the whole video and all of your guys' continuous support. It doesn't go unnoticed. If you guys want more exclusive content from me outside of just here on YouTube, you guys can go ahead and follow me on my socials. The links to all of them will be in the description down below. But thank you guys again, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one.